Hey there, Taylor Elwood here, your mad scientist and magical experimenter. And today I'm going to talk about what practical magic minimalism is. And if you're watching this video, then I just want to note that if you go below and click on the link that I share in there, there's a link to an article that I've written about how I became a practical magic minimalist. And so you'll get to see the rest of the content there that's related to this video. Anyway, getting back to the matter at hand, what is practical magic minimalism? When I talk about practical magic minimalism, I'm talking about an approach to magic where what you're doing is you're taking a minimalist perspective. You're looking at only using the bare essentials to do the magical work that you need to do. And what I mean by bare essentials is that basically you're getting rid of all the expensive bling, all the things that you think you need to have, and instead you're just focusing on the absolute bare necessities. You're using whatever you have on hand as opposed to necessarily going and using everything that you could use. Now, believe it or not, there was a time where I used to be a person who had an athame, a ritual sword, a staff, a pentacle, all that other stuff. I used to do a lot of ceremonial magic, and I also had tons of necklaces. Like if you had met me about, I don't know, 15 years ago. 15 or so years ago, you would have seen me with tons of necklaces around my neck. And, all that stuff I felt like I had to have in order to do magical work. And part of that is because, let's be honest here, you go to your average occult store, and what do you see? You see tons and tons of bling, right? Stones and herbalism and necklaces, oh my. And we're told, well, you have to have that stuff, right? You read a lot of these books, and it's like, well, you need to get this, or you need to get that, etc., etc. I don't know. I don't necessarily think that's the case. I've found over the years that I don't necessarily need that much stuff in order to do magical work. I mean, for me, sometimes magical work is as simple as a pointed finger, right? Or a piece of paper and a pen, or a brush and some watercolors and the watercolor palette. And that's it. And that's really what practical magic minimalism is. It's being able to cultivate the sense of wonder and awesome power of magic without necessarily having to bust out all the necklaces and incense and candles and everything else that, you have to have this. And don't get me wrong, I mean, I'm not going to knock the fact, having crystals or anything like that. I mean, hey, I had that stuff at one time, I used it, and sometimes it does have uses. I mean, I still sometimes do some fairly elaborate workings where I do have to draw upon certain things. And so as a result, I have tools that I use. For example, I have a memory box, and then I have a painting of a spider web that I use for any space-time work that I do. But I think that a lot of times the way that people approach magic is they think, well, I have to have all of this stuff in order to do magic. And I would argue that you don't. You just need to learn how to take what you have around you and make use of it. And also make use of your natural talents. I mean, a lot of the magic I do is through writing, as an example. I do a lot of writing magic, or a lot of chants, or stuff like that. I do a lot of painting magic, as an example, as well. I'm not even that great of a painter, but I still do it because it's something I can do. And the fact of the matter is, that's where the magic happens, through that creative expression. And I think it's useful to sometimes challenge and test, like, what do I believe about magic? What do I believe about magic where it says that I need to have all of this stuff, as opposed to, well, I can do it without all this stuff. And I could do magic with a mask, I could do magic with a wand, I could do magic with a paintbrush. What would it be like to just try and narrow it down a little bit? I often find that the most effective forms of magic aren't necessarily huge, showy affairs, but what they are is they are targeted and focused workings. And part of what makes them so targeted and focused is that the person gets rid of all the distractions. Now, again, in all fairness, some people will say, well, look, all the things that you think of as distractions are things that I actually do find to be necessary. They help me focus. They help me get to that place. Fair enough. Not going to knock you for that. I totally get it. I used to be that way. I used to do rituals where, I'd have the sword and the athame and all that other stuff, and I would use that as to help create the space, and I'd have music on in the background and other things. And I felt like it was important to have all that. And I needed it at the time. But I guess when I look at practical magic minimalism necessarily asks, what can you do to get to a point where you don't need that stuff? Or if you do need it, that you're able to need it in a very specific context as opposed to necessarily needing it for every single thing you do. And that's where practical magic minimalism comes in, because it looks at everything and it really boils it down to the basics in a way, but then it takes that and it applies it to what you're doing, and it allows you to go even further and deeper into what you're trying to do with your magical work. In the article that I wrote, again, links below, but the article that I wrote, I talk about using sigils and how the use of chaos magic style sigils was what really introduced me to practical magic minimalism, because what you're doing is you're writing a statement, and then you're taking that statement and turning it into a symbol, and then you are basically firing that sigil in some form or manner. And that's it. Very simple, very effective, very minimalistic. And so I think that when we look at magic in that way, we discover that it really can be very practical and focused. It doesn't have to be this huge, off-the-walls kind of thing. And that's a really cool thing. All right, so that's it for today. I just wanted to share that with you, and I will talk to you later. Take care.